Welcome to Coach's Corner, episode 41. And this is going to be a special episode. Well, they're all special, but this one's going to be specifically talking about a very hot button topic called creatine. So you cannot, at least I can, because my Instagram feed is just, all full of fitness influencers that I see what they're doing just to make sure, see what the competition's doing out there. But everybody's doing videos on creatine right now.
It's funny how the zeitgeist kind of bubble pops. I mean, it's been around for so long.
Yeah.
Well known for so long, but still, it's like somehow it just comes back into the froth.
It's crazy. I mean, I've been personally taking creatine for 23 years.
Yeah, it's that new stuff.
And even 23 years ago, it was like, you just got to take creatine.
Oh, yeah. So matter of fact, like when I went to school in the early 2000s, like 2003, it was definitely just like, in the textbooks, many years since
because
80s, 70s.
Yeah. It's the only over-the-counter supplement that you can buy right now that is clinically proven, scientifically proven to increase performance and strength.
Backed.
All the other stuff is like you have A tier, B tier, C tier supplements.
Yep.
C tier is just unfounded, anecdotal hearsay.
I said so.
B tier could be beneficial, like maybe amino acids would be in that, like depending on the case, depending on the person.
Right.
Maybe
some
more research is needed.
But like there are like A to B's that make sense of like, well, it does this.
Yeah, like
this
almost
cell.
like sport specific or case specific. Like if you're this type of athlete, this B tier might work for you, but in general, maybe more research is needed to be done. And there's like the A tier where it's like you just can't deny it.
No, there's countless studies.
Yeah, and then creatine is A tier. I mean, it's just like the benefits,
plus.
and the more they study, the more they find that it's not just sports, which we'll get into, and like performance, but actually like a lot of other benefits in your health as well.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna be doing our best to just kind of chat a little bit about it. Disclaimer: we're not like experts. We're not like collegiate researchers here that are going to break down like the crazy nitty-gritty science, but we'll just kind of give like our take on it, and I think we know enough to be dangerous. But
100%.
So basically, why don't you start us out here, Mr. Kinesiology?
Just in general.
Yeah, what's your take on it?
Well, I mean, okay, it's fantastic. I think.
Okay, moving on. So.
That's all I really have to say anymore.
Yeah.
No, but basically, I think it's understanding that there's 3 energy pathways for a muscle when it contracts and has to do work. Mm-hmm. You have kind of like your ATP phase. You have like your glycolytic or your carbohydrate use phase for using some common language. And then you have your oxidative or maybe your fat burning phase if you want to use common language. And it's kind of the gradient is there based on intensity or work. So the ATP is like 10 seconds worth of readily available maximal contraction stored energy. So
think like you have to sprint to catch the bus.
You sprint to catch the bus. Or you have to like jump as high as you can to try to touch a basketball. Right?
Yeah, like one set of 3 or 4 of your max reps or something.
So literally 10 seconds or less is all going to be ATP. Mm-hmm. Then you got up to 2 minutes in the glycolytic where you're kind of using glycogen, which is the stored carbohydrate in your muscle. That's going to be your kind of that burn, which is the lactic acid. You're kind of doing a set of push-ups and your muscles are burning, and it's not sustainable by any means, but you're kind of in that range that might be a minute of work, 45 seconds, that kind of thing. And then you have the oxidative, which is when you go on a walk or if you're
we're in our oxidative pathway as we speak.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically just using oxygen to metabolize fat for energy. Very low demand, long lasting. It's your endurance kind of a thing.
Yeah, like if you're a trained endurance athlete, like if you're running a marathon,
that would be oxidative.
You can't burn through glycogen for 5 hours, so you got to start utilizing oxygen as your energy source. And so oxygen is pretty straightforward. You breathe it in. Glycolytic, just to highlight what you said, it's derived when you eat carbohydrate specifically. If you train, well, we all carry a degree of glycogen, but
everybody has it.
But it's just the gas tank in your muscles, right?
Yeah, it's like if you walk up a flight of stairs and you get that burn in your leg, you've started to tap into that. And it's also one thing, when I was in school, the energy pathways are so distinct, and even in how we just explained them, but one of the things they mention is that there's technically like an influx of all 3 pathways at all times.
Right.
It's not like you're doing a set of push-ups and your oxidative pathway is just not working and your ATP is just not working. It's this kind of like smorgasbord that's happening all the time. Like there might be a single contraction where you have to like bend down and pick up a box that's not intense enough for all of your ATP, but your oxidative pathway. So it's like, there's this smorgasbord. Your ATP is constantly being replenished and used. Certain contractions will kind of dip into your glycogen. It's not like you're just at low level, just purely burning fat and oxidative pathway.
Right. It's not so like cut and dry.
Yeah,
like there's always a little overlap. And then
exactly.
there's ATP, which is probably like we refer to it as the energy currency in the body.
Yep.
Muscles, brain, like that's just kind of like our readily available energy source at any moment and any time.
Just ready to go. Yeah, it's the hot gasoline that's just ready to
So what the hell does it have to do with creatine?
Well, so basically ATP is adenosine triphosphate. And when your body utilizes the molecule for energy, it turns into a diphosphate. So ATP turns into ADP, or adenosine diphosphate. And basically what creatine does, which is it's already naturally stored in the body. I think it's like they said that the liver and the kidneys can produce up to 1 gram a day. We store it in our muscles. We get it from, animal products generally, like red meat and that kind of thing. I think like a pound of red meat or something like that has 5 grams of creatine in it.
Right.
So we do get it from animals. Our body can make it. Obviously, we need it. But basically what happens is that the presence of creatine in the muscles or in the cell basically replenishes the phosphate molecule quicker. So as you utilize ATP and it turns into ADP, the creatine helps slap on a phosphate again and takes it from that di or
turns it back into a tri.
And turns it back into a tri. And so basically your body is just getting a higher uptick of readily available ATP. You replenish it faster and there's more of it because your body can just assign the phosphates to ADP that's kind of lying around anyway.
Yeah, and so how that translates to performance is that like we just talked about, like if you have this 10-second sort of window to utilize your ATP pathway, your first pathway, like explosive stuff, quick sprints, heavy pressing, or heavy lifts of any kind, right? Explosive movement for 10 seconds or less. Well, it stands to reason then if you have more ATP available in your muscles are more saturated with these ATP molecules, well then, maybe you can, instead of 10 seconds, you might be able to push for 12 or 13, which might translate to 1 or 2 extra reps.
Yep.
And instead of, your max effort being 100 pounds, maybe it's now 110 pounds.
Right. You mean being able to maintain a maximum like speed on a sprint for 7 seconds, you can now maintain a maximum speed for 10. And because it's like one of the things to think about is that like if there was ATP readily available for longer, your body would just keep using that. And so I think one of the ideas is, again, that idea of like these energy pathways are overlapping, is that as you exit the 10-second window, your body starts to utilize the stored carbohydrate or the glycogen because it needs to keep contracting. But at the same time, your ATP system is constantly regenerating. Yeah, it just can't regenerate fast enough for the demands you're putting on it. But now that we're regenerating that ATP even faster, as your body dips out of that 10 seconds and starts to utilize that secondary pathway, the ATPs get turning over, and it's much more efficient than the glycolytic pathway. So it's almost like you're able to throw on more wood on the fire quicker, and there's this higher turnover of the preferred rate, the preferred energy source, so to speak.
It's almost like you're hitting like a little nitro boost.
Yeah, like micro nitro boost.
And you get the 10-second nitro boost, like in Mario Kart or something like that.
I was thinking exactly over there, like
and then
NBA
like you go
Jam,
back to like
if
your
you're
gas.
old like us, NBA Jam with the turbo bar.
Oh right, yeah.
Like your turbo bar just gets replenished quicker.
Totally. And so you got, let's say you're taking a supplement, creatine monohydrate. You have now saturated your muscles in creatine. So not only do you have more ATP molecules available, which does all the things we just said, but then you also replenish those dyes back into tris faster. Because remember, the creatine phosphate is what turns the dye back into the tri, which then converts back into your power booster of ATP. Turbo bar of ATP. So that's why it's so powerful from an athletic standpoint.
Yeah, it's just physiologically sound. That's why science backs it up. There's no like, increases your mood or helps you sleep. It's just factually an energy pathway of the body.
So you could see how like, we're not talking like anabolic steroid level improvements, but like for the average person, this could be a 5 to 10% increase in performance and strength over the course of a year, which might mean, like, let's say you're a guy trying to put on muscle, that might look like, instead of you putting on 10 pounds of muscle in that year naturally without anything, maybe it's more like 13,
15. 15? I'm trying to remember. I had some statistics in my mind about some studies that showed the amount of lean mass gain comparatively, from people that took creatine to not, and it was pretty substantial. I mean, we're talking like in the study, I think the creatine people gained like 2 to 3 more pounds of lean mass, and it was well under a year.
Probably just like a mesocycle of some sort.
Yeah, probably like
12 weeks.
12 weeks. Yeah, and so it's substantial. I wish I had some factual numbers. I'm not going to spit out anything without knowing for a fact, but it is fairly substantial, the improvements that you can make.
And I will say it's noticeable too. And how much of that is psychosomatic? Who knows?
It's factual,
but
though,
hey,
right?
placebo's as good as anything, right?
Yep.
And so it's true because like so much of our, not to go too far off on like a philosophical tangent, but like
go deep.
So much of our strength and ability is our own perception and our own belief in that.
100%.
And so like even by just thinking that you are going to be stronger because you're taking the supplement is probably going to make you unlock another layer of performance that maybe you wouldn't have, regardless of whether there's any actual effect. It could be a sugar pill for all you know, but you just think it is.
You think you can pull out 2 or 3 more reps at the end of a set, and all of a sudden, instead of it, actually, you're willing to be more uncomfortable a little deeper.
So much of that shit happens. But that's not the case with creatine. Like creatine, for sure, is clinically proven. It really does. But I think there's also, for sure, a psychosomatic component of it as well, just knowing that you're on it. But I will say it is noticeable. Like if you're not on it for a long period of time and you start taking it, within a week, you're like, oh yeah, I'm pushing for a few more reps here. Like I'm throwing an extra 10 on each side. Like I can feel the difference here. Wow.
Yeah.
So the creatine in and of itself doesn't necessarily make your muscles any stronger or bigger, but what it does is it increases your capacity to train, and the volume of training now improves, which that is what makes your muscles bigger and stronger.
Yeah. Intensity and volume increases. So yeah, if you were to just take creatine and do nothing would happen fundamentally in terms of your musculature and development.
Yeah.
But if you are already exercising, it's a gold mine.
Some of the big complaints is that people are like, well, creatine makes people gain water weight.
Right. And there is some truth to that.
It does.
It does. But it's also fairly minimal. I mean, it's like, I think people hear that and they think they're going to be like a walking fishbowl all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Just like face round and baby faced. Yeah. And it's.
But it's also the same person will go and drink a bottle of red wine and eat a pizza.
Yeah. Or just eat eat like a ramen or something that has a day's worth of salt in it. I mean,
But there's a difference between subcutaneous water weight retention and intramuscular water weight retention. And so, think of it like this, okay?
There it is.
Think of it like this. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Think about it like this. All right, let's say you had like a Ziploc bag, which is just like your skin. Think of like the bag is just like your skin and it's full of water. And let's say you take like a bottle of water and put it inside the bag. Creatine doesn't pull water between your muscle and your skin. Creatine pulls water into the actual muscle, so making the bottle of water bigger because it has more hydration, more water in it. But the subcutaneous water weight that makes you look puffy, it's not that. If anything, it's going to make you look more leaned out because it's increasing the volume of your muscle. Also
pushing against the fat, thinning the fat out,
thinning it out of your muscle. And also like pulling water into your muscle is a good thing. That just means your cells are going to be more hydrated, functioning better, recovering faster, performing better.
I think a lot of time it's more like maybe the scale goes up. People are concerned about gaining a pound or two, and they're just like, oh no. But again, it's just understanding that that's not coming from fat. It's coming from your little plump muscles in there.
I mean, if you put on a few pounds of muscle, you probably have the same effect. Yeah. But other than that, like other than just like water weight retention, the side effects are super minimal. The only thing I could really find is just some GI tract.
That's what I found, but that's also extremely high dosing. Very, very high dosing, which, anecdotally, I've never done it, so I've always been curious, but I met a guy who was at, I don't know, actually one of the
CrossFit competitions.
Yes,
this guy,
I was going to say, I remember
he was all about creatine and cholesterol, man.
Dude, he would take like 20 grams a day. So just on we'll talk about it more in detail, but 5 grams a day is on the average. Is
recommended dose,
That's just what it is through and through, no way around it. And so he was taking 20 to 30 a day. He swore by it.
And this was before steroids was as prevalent as it is now. This is probably 10 years ago.
At least,
At least in like the normal world. Pro bodybuilders obviously been doing roids for generations, but like normal gym people,
it wasn't quite
seems like
there
now it's kind of everyone's doing some form of it.
Everybody's on TRT.
But 10, 12 years ago, when like 2014, when we were doing these like local little CrossFit competitions, like this guy I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
He was hard as nails and fucking was deadlifting like 700 pounds.
Yeah, he felt like a rock. Like he really he just was built like a boulder. He was impressive as a human.
And he said he had a dozen raw eggs a day and 20 grams of creatine. Sometimes,
the creatine is something that's like I outside of the GI tract, I know it wouldn't be harmful.
Yeah.
And so it'd be an interesting thing to experiment with and see if it really had like a extra benefit.
Yeah, I say why not try like
maybe
just
do 10 or something.
Go start with 10 and just see, and then maybe just go like up 5-gram increments.
See what happens.
There was a point, I think right around then, I was like, fuck it, I'll see what 10 feels like.
Yeah.
And again, I don't remember. It's psychosomatic. But I was like, I couldn't tell you if I was actually any stronger or not.
Yeah.
But also like if 5 grams for me at 200 pounds is different than 5 grams for somebody at 150 pounds, you know?
That's exactly true, right? But then what if you're 300 pounds?
And this guy was probably like 220, 230 jacked. So maybe his 20 would be like a normal person's 10, you know?
Right.
But it's really hard to find any reason to not do it. And one other thing that is, the more it's being researched because it is so popular now, is they're finding like it's got tremendous benefits for cognitive function and brain health, focus, and acuity.
So cool.
And especially for older populations.
Yeah, the elderly, absolutely. Which makes sense because obviously just like our bodies degenerate, our brains degenerate, you know, and so all of a sudden you're just given, because basically your brain uses ATP and glucose as the two primary energy sources. And so via the process we were just talking about, just getting the brain more readily available ATP just means increased cognitive function. So
I was just getting ready for this episode. I read an interesting article, and it was like 95% of it is allocated towards musculature, but 5% is basically going to your brain. But your brain uses ATP just like your muscles do.
Right.
ATP passes up the blood-brain barrier under mental stress and fatigue. Just like your muscles, your brain is basically getting drained of its energy.
Yeah.
And so what they found is that like dosing another 5 grams of creatine within a 3-hour window actually helps boost brain function back up. So intravenous, like if you were to do like an IV drip within 15 minutes, it can improve cognitive ability.
That's so cool.
If you just drink it though, about 3 hours is the latency between before it can get into your brain.
Interesting.
So it's really interesting. So it's like they found that like especially like if you have a really shitty night's sleep or you're just systemically fatigued, you're just drained, acute high doses of it can actually just help you get back up to a cognitive function that was similar to like if you had a full night's sleep.
I wonder, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, like Amanda's in grad school right now. She's working on papers, and like I bet you even for things of that nature.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like what I think we talked about once of like a grandmaster chess player will burn like 2,000 calories.
Brain is no joke.
Just from thinking, because they're thinking so hard, and so the brain's just churning through all this fuel. So it's like in these kind of high mental stress situations, even if you're just thinking a lot, dose on that creatine. That's so cool.
Just sipping creatine.
Yeah, and it doesn't work with everything. Like, it doesn't affect Parkinson's and other degenerative brain diseases or brain stuff. But
it doesn't, you're saying?
It doesn't, yeah.
But I wonder though if you're already diagnosed, maybe it's a little bit too late. But I wonder like, does it help stave it off if you're taking it up until then? I don't know.
I mean, it's the next time I get a poor night's sleep, I'm definitely gonna try the creatine blast.
Sure, I was thinking the same thing. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like they were saying, like it's helping. They're doing more research around it right now because now that like it's becoming so popular, all these researchers now are trying to like see, well, what else can it do?
Well, yeah, I saw a thing that helps with anxiety and depression, especially in like teens and youth. And the mechanisms aren't 100% clear, but it just seems like when the brain struggles, the brain struggles, and but just giving it better function in general, you can stave off these kind of emotional things that can be related to chemical imbalances and all the kind of stuff. I mean, you got to imagine that like the body's so intricate. So like, what if your liver gets less creatine put out? It's supposed to produce like a gram a day. What if it just, as you get older, it produces less? It's only spitting out like half a gram and
then maybe you don't eat a lot of animal products, so you're just not really getting any.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, this accessible resource for your brain and all the things is just kind of lagging, especially as you get older. Maybe it just makes total sense.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. I think especially because like if you are more plant-based and you're a lifter or you train, I think it's even more important because you can get it naturally through just like fish and meat and stuff. But if you're not eating a lot of that, but you're still training hard and like taking a lot of protein from like plant sources, which is great. This could be a really, really important addition to your routine if you are more plant-based for sure.
Yeah.
So it's hard to find any reasons not to do it. I mean,
And there's pretty much none. I mean, I mean, especially even now, if you don't exercise, the brain function is gonna be the next piece. And so it's like, it's interesting. It's very cool. Very few supplements or substances that.
Someone crashing the party here.
That kind of have that just sound reasoning like that.
For sure. And I mean, I don't think I've not taken it I've been on creatine personally for at least solid 15 years.
Yeah. I've been off for a while. It's probably been, I just fell out of pattern like 6 months. I thought I didn't have any, just didn't reorder it. And then because of this episode, I was rummaging around and I found like a bag that I had purchased, but I totally had forgotten about. So now I'm going to get to see the contrast.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
I'm unsaturated.
That'd be good.
So now I'm going to definited see.
You should just go to 10 grams right away.
I'm just going to do 10. I'm just going to do 10 indefinitely.
And then just see, because I mean, that might just be like, whoa, game changer for you.
Seriously. Right.
But go ahead.
So I just talked about saturated.
Yeah.
So what's the dosing? What's going on?
It's interesting because I think it depends on who you talk to. I think when I first started taking it 20 years ago, it was like this saturation phase where you should do 15 grams a day for a few days, and then just once you're saturated, your muscles are saturated after a few days, and you just go to like the standard 5.
Yep.
But then now everybody's just like, just take the 5. It's fine.
It just takes longer
to
saturate. Yeah. And so the idea here is that one thing about the supplement is you have to take it every day. I mean, maybe in terms of the brain function and getting a boost on a poor night's sleep, that might, I don't know, that would make sense to me that you could get an acute benefit from just supplying your brain with something in most. But for the muscular performance aspects, your muscle has to be saturated, and that only happens from consistent use. And so it's something you have to take every day. If you just work out twice a week and take it twice a week when you work out.
Don't just turn to one of those things like people do have protein shakes. Like, I just do a shake when I work out. I'm like, well,
better than nothing.
But like, just do it every day.
Yeah, it's a macronutrient for total numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't like a training session contingent supplement here. It's just like every day needs to be consistent. So when you do go and train, you're ready to roll. You're not like already starting to dwindle down.
So the muscles have to be saturated. As long as you take it consistently, it'll happen at one point. If you took 15 or 20 grams for a few days, you'll saturate quicker. But fundamentally, if you just took 5 grams every day consistently, you will eventually reach saturation. It just might take like 10 days.
But I think this is where people get mixed up, and I think this is how it causes GI issues, because you're like, oh, I got to saturate. You've never taken it before. You read you got to saturate, so you start taking 15 grams a day, and you're just gassy, and your stomach's upset, and you're like, oh, I tried creatine, doesn't work for me. But had you actually just done 5 grams a day, and you would have been just totally fine. You might have just dosed too hard.
And since this is something that you're going to take every day indefinitely, seemingly, anyway, the 5 extra days to get saturated isn't going to really matter, right? You can't. You're not going to do this for just a month or 2 weeks. It's like, no, this is like you just take this. I mean, maybe you wax and wane a little bit. Maybe you go on vacation for 2 weeks. It naturally happens or something. Yeah. But fundamentally, you just take it every day. And there's a lot of questions about timing. And there's a little bit of research that might support, particularly in athletes, that taking the creatine directly after exercise has a more beneficial effect. But really, it doesn't matter
because it is a saturation thing.
It is a saturation.
So it's not
you just
like
depleted a bunch of it.
It's not like a proteins where you got like a spike and then a drop in your bloodstream. It's like
your muscles are just full.
It's just in there.
Yeah. So the most important thing is consistency. Is to just build it into a habit that you'll guarantee to take it every day. So if you mix it, if you do a protein shake, mix it in there. Or if you do something in the morning, but just what matters is that you just do it every day. So whatever time of the day will allow that.
I also think that assimilation is important. So like if it's just 5 grams, which isn't much, and so like if you have like a huge meal and then you have your 5 grams, like it probably wouldn't assimilate as great of a percentage if you were to drink it like, let's say, on an empty stomach.
I wonder. That's a good question. I mean, it's still getting in you.
Yeah, but there's just a lot of other stuff your body has to sift through. There's got to be some
efficiency.
Efficiency loss. In the whole thing.
It's interesting too. I also read that apparently taking it with caffeine can reduce its efficacy of absorption a little bit. Yeah, which would be probably what I would do in the morning, but not enough to deter you.
Yeah, we're getting a little caught up in the weeds here. I think the big takeaway though is like, There's really no reason to not do it. It only looks like green lights. The only side effect maybe is some upset stomach, but again, that's usually correlated with higher doses. So for most folks, it's like there's just really no reason to not do it, especially if you train.
Yep.
It's a natural chemical your body produces on its own, no matter what. It's in the foods you're eating already. All you're doing is just giving a little extra, a couple of grams extra than you would produce on your own to just kind of like maximize your potential without having to do drugs,
100%.
And so, yeah, there's really no reason to not do it. A couple of takeaways. Monohydrate's the only one you need.
Yeah, creatine monohydrate. That's it.
Yep. All the other bullshit is just bullshit.
All marketing. People will sell you all types of other forms and higher absorption, longer release rates, pills, and not as much. Charge you 17 times more money.
Anything what I get, it's like $16-17 for a pound. Like
Go
that's
bulksupplements.com or from Amazon. You get a giant sack for.
So if you're paying more than that, you're buying the packaging. You're buying the brand.
Which is one of the best parts. It's dirt cheap. I mean, as a supplement goes, it is like dirt cheap.
It is a commodity.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is for what you get out of it.
Yeah. So there you go. So hopefully that will help you guys make a more informed decision. But as far as supplementation goes, less is more. Just don't get caught up in the stuff that's like, some of these stacks I see people have, it's like insane. They're taking like 10, 15 different supplements a day. And I'm like, all right, be surprised how far. Just a really solid meal plan, some protein, creatine, stay hydrated, go to bed, be consistent. Like that's
D3,
that is
magnesium glycinate, fish oil,
leucine,
B vitamin 12,
nitric oxide. It's just like, whoa, bro, you're taking like a fucking.
Well, those are actually things I take every day.
That's but you're talking about vitamins. I'm talking about like
the neurotropic,
the leucine, no, it's like this is my stack, my pre-workout stack, my intra-workout stack, my post-workout stack.
Yeah.
And that's way too complicated. Like, keep it simple. Most important thing is nutrition. But anyway, so there you go. So that was it. Episode 41, our take on creatine. We'll catch you guys next time. Episode 42 coming up. Peace.